Hi, I'm Barbara Rimkunis, and this is your Exeter History Minute. Did you know that parts of New Hampshire were once part of Massachusetts? Well, Massachusetts Bay Colony, because we're talking about nearly 400 years ago. The English began arriving here in Musquamscook in the early 1630s, confident that the region was open for the taking because the patents were a bit shaky. So it was something of a squatter's paradise. There were a few English families living at the falls of the Squamscott River when a Puritan minister named John Wheelwright arrived with a small group of his followers. Wheelwright had been a pastor at a church in Woolston where he preached a sermon that got him into some trouble, leading to his banishment from the Massachusetts Bay Colony. In the spring of 1638, he trudged through the deep snow and found his way here, and Musquamscook became Exeter, named for Exeter in Devon, England, a place that has no connection whatsoever with John Wheelwright or any of his followers. Lacking any type of governmental structure, the Englishmen drafted a mutual agreement called a combination, pledging to rule themselves under the guidance of the king. All went well. They created common lands, divvied up the remaining land based on the needs and social status of the men, and continued along. They dammed up the river, cut down most of the trees, leaving the native people with reduced ways to fish and hunt. Rules were laid down to control cattle and swine, but with no New Hampshire governance, by 1643, the other towns in the province had aligned themselves with the Massachusetts Bay Colony. There was concern for safety. English and natives didn't always get along, and legal matters could be dealt with in the organized Massachusetts court system. And these were people who liked to litigate. Over the objections of some members, in May of 1643, Exeter sent a petition to the Massachusetts General Court asking that Exeter be under their jurisdiction. Under the agreement, local matters were handled locally. These are little disputes about hogs and cornfields, stuff like that. But for bigger issues, the strict Puritan laws had to be followed. One woman was brought up on a charge that she'd displayed excessive pride by wearing a silk scarf. Her husband defended her by maintaining she didn't wear it year-round. If she did wear her scarf for pride, he said, she would be as proud in summer as she is in winter, and in dry weather as in wet. Behind the scenes, there was a custody battle over the Province of New Hampshire. The patent to the land had been granted to John Mason, but he never defended his claim. His grandson, Robert Tufton Mason, decided to reassert the claim in 1650. England was undergoing its own political turmoil at the time, and when things finally settled down, a commission was sent to New England to figure it all out. In 1680, New Hampshire was restored as a royal province. The new royal governor, Edward Cranfield, was universally disliked, probably because his primary concern was to squeeze as much money out of the inhabitants as possible. Meanwhile, back in England, a new king, James II, came to the throne, followed by, a few years later, by William III. And in the shuffle, there were a few years when there was no royal governor for the province of New Hampshire at all, and it was again lumped in with the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Finally, in 1692, New Hampshire became fully New Hampshire, and we have been ever since. In our relationship with Massachusetts, well, we can't avoid the fact that John Wheelwright's pastorate in Woolston, you might remember, was later renamed Quincy. You know what else is from Quincy? Dunkin' Donuts. Oh, the Munchkin Fairy came. Cheers! For more on the history of Musquamscook, or Exeter, Province of New Hampshire, Massachusetts Bay Colony, or the state of New Hampshire, check our website at www.exeterhistory.org. It was okay, but we do need to do it again.